Hello, everybody. Welcome into Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today we have a lot to cover. It was a heck of a weekend in sports. There was so much that went on. The NFL draft completed. We're going to break down our winners and losers here in our first segment. We got 5 of each, although this was a very good draft. So my losers list was a little tough to pick. We'll go over that in a second. We'll also break down the NBA action for the week. We had our first team eliminated. We'll talk as well as where all the other series are looking like right now. We're going to do a month into the season MLB power rankings. Get month in power rankings. We'll talk about all the different league teams, surprise shockers, what I expected out of teams and they are right now. And then we'll close our show talking about the Cowboys re-signing Ezekiel Elliott on a one deal. So we have a lot to talk about here on our show today. Appreciate everybody for getting over. If you like to be in the show, all you need to do is go to GSM Podcast Network. Leave a donation link that's on the screen right now. GSMC Podcast Network. Message that pop up at the bottom. For anybody else watching, what you need to do is go to GSM Podcast Network. Once again, this GSMC Podcast Network. We appreciate anything you give. We appreciate you all for just taking on like they put in the comments as well. See all of this. So appreciate all of you guys for watching. Like I said, a lot to talk about. So we're gonna get right to it. We're gonna start the show with the NFL draft from the NFL over the weekend. I went ahead and gave a top 5 from like I was saying. So it's a really stacked class. There weren't really that many that actually had all draft class. Usually you got one or two that did have the great draft and have the great opportunity to draft players, stuff like that. But in this draft, almost every team hit on at least one guy, in my opinion. There were a couple of them that didn't go better, and we'll work all that down here just on it. So we're right, and we're doing 5-1. Like I said, I did 5. There were only 2 real losers, maybe 3 that I thought from this draft. But I did do 5. So starting at number 5, I had the Minnesota Vikings. It wasn't anything that they did wrong. I think the Vikings draft quarterback future. They really solid player. They need rush. They had a round. They had a lot to do it. A 3rd, 4th, and 5th round pick to move up and get an extra 3rd and 4th rounder to move up one spot to get JJ McCarthy. It's not necessarily a bad draft, right? They on everything they need to. In the first 3 rounds, they got their edge rusher and they got their cornerback. Kyrie Jackson, he isn't a top-tier cornerback. He's got some potential to hop in and make some plays pretty quickly into the season. He played some big snaps last year in the Pac-12. The Vikings had a good draft. It just gave up too much, in my opinion. They won outside of that, it was not really the best Vikings more to have 4 losers list 5 pitches, and it's really out of first round. They got a really good deal on that, but had bigger needs. For been through the fact that you lost Calvin, you still had huge for the Jags. He moved down to Jacksonville, New York. They still had a pretty solid New York. Could have used another Ryan Thomas. Definitely going to help that, absolutely. But needed a cornerback, and that was something they needed badly. And they didn't go and get a corner until the 3rd round, really. 6. They could have gotten one in the 2nd round to pick 40-foot value. There were still some really corners there, but instead they got wide receiver and tackle first. So nothing against the picks, but and I really do like Brian Thomas Jr. It's just they didn't get what they needed to get, and in the draft class that's full of really cool in the draft, and the Jags were left on. The Jaguars, the Eagles didn't have moves to get it. There were a lot of trades in this draft, but nothing was made until the Red Jags. So that's why I lose the team. In respect to the actual losers, I think. At 3, I have the Jets, and this is still a little iffy on the Jets because they did Ryan Moses. They brought the Cowboys, and instead of being a guard, which they was for, with a lot of good guards still on the board, they went with O'Shawn. Again, nothing against Olu Fashanu. He's a good guy, but if you're drafting in the 1st round, and I know they did trade down and get this anyway, but you're drafting in the 1st round, you kind of want a guy that's going to come in and record quickly. You are preparing for the future, and he can play some guard, he can shift in and get a real solid offensive line, but you want to build around Aaron Rodgers while he's here. You don't know how long you have Tyron Smith and Morgan Moses, but, they're there, and it was a fine pick. It wasn't the best pick. Another big issue with the draft that the Jets have had is that they took 2 running backs. This wasn't a particularly strong running back class. And they're running back because the running backs that deserved to draft it other than they. You look at last year, he was the Lions were getting laughed out of the building for drafting 12. Look at it, and that was a great pick. They need him to be successful. But the Jets already have Hall and post-drafting rounds, and 5th round pick running backs. It just doesn't make sense. They had needs, and putting running backs in the same class, there's a lot of other stuff you could have done because they have backs to get the version of need at that fit. At number 2, I have the Bros. Bo Nix should have first. Really down. Again, way too much draft capital on a player that's never going to turn. Bo Nix is not an NFL franchise. There were a lot of Broncos. This wasn't a team like like the Broncos were a couple years ago when they made that. Everyone thought they were a couple years ago when they made that trade for uh, Russell Wilson. Back in the quarterback away, they needed a lot. They cut at receiver, they cut at corner, they cut at defense, cut everywhere. They needed to really refill. And at number 12, with every single defensive player still with Bo Nix, a guy that I'm not even convinced is going to win the starting job, a guy like Zach Wilson, which would be embarrassing. Now he will because they spent the 12th overall pick on him, but it's definitely a little concern to say the least. My number one losers are the Falcons. Again, it's a lot like there's a lot that's wrong because this is a really talented draft class, but they did next year with the overall pick. The same month later, a month after, they signed Chris to $100 million over 4 years. So the Falcons now go from 2 quarterbacks on 4 deals, and Michael Penix, who's not a particularly young prospect, actually much older prospect in this, and he can fit at least 3 years if he's a whole track. You have to pick a year, and you don't know yet. We don't as a what's in fact going to talk with him a little more, but it's just not really worth that in the so much resources and ad nauseum about this in the Friday that we did when I broke down the first. It doesn't. The other head scratching move in the real had the problem because the second they needed a rusher, a top tier edge rusher. There was a top tier defensive lineman in the draft, and they drafted Oroho at Clemson, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. You had a guy who Newton was one of the best players in the entire class. You got him in second. That trade, everything was lined up for it, and then you write to Tyron, Newton goes. I'd be wrong about this. I think Johnny Newton is a top 5 in this entire class. I really am a fan of Johnny Newton. So I definitely would have picked Johnny Newton there. And I'll continue where I left off with the Falcons, the Commanders. You could say what you want about the Commanders' first round pick in January. Say what about that. If it works out, it's a great pick. It's kind of taking a flyer when I would have taken Drake May's more sure thing. But that's Washington front office decided. They decided they I'll let that one slide. That's a bit of a toss-up. I love their sound. I had as one of the defenders in the state. They got Nick Sanderson, cornerback out of Michigan, who's really underrated. He's got really good ball skills, and he's really good at tackling. You got him, you got Bentonot, the tight end at K State. I really loved their second round. The rest of their draft was fine, but their second round killed it. I loved what they did, so I had them here in number 5 of the draft. Number 4, I had the Raiders. They did not good. They got Brock Bowers to fall to them at 13, and they got Jackson Howard to fall to them in the second round. That alone is great draft. You get maybe the best inside guard center in Jackson Howard in the entire draft, the second round, and get one of the more intriguing talents in this is just a tight end before we leave him or something, or he's just such a special talent. We'll find another for him. I think that's the way that there's Brock Bowers to go around making him a steal when they got him with the draft. Steals, they just kind of had at least an equal decision. They got value positions. They didn't really make any one. Pittsburgh did a really good job. They got Troy Fautanu, who, if I was the Jets, that's the guy I would have taken for guard. Zach Fisher, who's one of the better inside players out of West Virginia. They got underrated wide receiver in Roman Wilson in the 3rd round. It was a very, very good draft by the Steelers. They didn't really miss a single pick. They didn't reach too hard for anyone, and they didn't really make those pitfalls that you see a lot of nowadays. No, they got the top corners on the board and got a really interesting back in Will Shipley, who I'm a big fan of. I know they brought Saquon Barkley in, but always good to have more guys to spell them, especially with hitting take a couple of touches off. Johnny Wilson is a huge, I really need a receiver. They have A.J. Brown and they have Devonta Smith, both of whom just signed big contracts this offseason. So they're there today, but you got a 6-star receiver. He'll learn how to catch it. The Eagles killed this draft. They really did. And as a Giant fan, I hate to take the so good on the Eagles. Number 1 winner is the Chicago. And to really do their draft, I don't think because they're and got a 5 player in the They didn't have that many picks. They didn't again in round. They helped out their offensive line, which they needed. And then from the 5th, they grabbed a punter in the 4th, which he was probably the best punter at Iowa. He's punted more times than scored in a lot of games. So he's got tons of lag. He'll be very good. I love this class from Chicago. There wasn't a lot. You decide if you want to include what they use their draft picks on. Getting Keenan Allen, getting DJ Moore, finding other deep players, getting Montez Sweat. It's an even better draft. The Chicago Bears, far and away, I think had the best draft, and it really just does come down to having those 2 top 10 picks and hitting them. They got really lucky with the way the draft went. They got a franchise receiver and a quarterback to come in together, and that is a duo that can really have a league if they pan out. If there's a quarterback ever. To see with that. Those are my winners this round. We're going to break the NBA. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll be on Sports by GSMC Podcast. Please let me aside. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world mine?
Please Lord, give me a sign. What be the best? Study on face, regular ticket, break organization, blow up for basements. I've been taking out your shit like amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing. Old ass shows are 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, I'll diss my sound. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits, some losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip, you choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh, I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
Welcome back to Sports by GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Thank you so much for sticking with me through that break. If you are just tuning in, we just finished talking about the winners and losers in the NFL draft. Real quick, I'll run through them for you. My overall winner was the Chicago Bears. My overall loser was the Atlanta Falcons. Go check out, I did a top 5 for each of those. So go check that out if you are interested. In this segment coming up, we are going to move into the NBA. The NBA had a fantastic weekend of games. Up and down. We had our first elimination of the playoffs. We will talk about that and before we do that. Remember, if you would eat show than you are, all you need to do is go to GSMCPodcast.net. Leave a Tinder with message. That message will pop up on the bottom of the screen. You, me, and anybody else watching around the world. You know what you talk about in the show with your questions. All you do is that for GSMC Podcast. Leave a comment. I'd be taking a look at those. If you have a question, go ahead and leave a donation, or I'd be everything. All your time watching as well. But saying a lot of stuff go over. We had 2 games in a series to break down, and we had that go over. We had our first elimination of the playoffs. The Phoenix Suns were swept. That's right, the preseason champions, the Bradley, Kevin, the Devin Booker preseason champions, have been swept by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota Timberwolves outlast them in just everything. This is supposed to on paper be a series. One of the sensible points. When shuts down the playoffs is a sweep. The Suns never had that to really be able to pressure the Wolves. I thought they would steal the game home, but Anthony Edwards played incredible in this series. You want to talk about his commentarity? I know he's kind of had that all season long. Showing up in playoff series, the first playoff series, Wolves having that's almost 20 years ago. It is insane to think how long it's been in Minnesota since they won playoffs. They finally won in its sweep against a Suns team was really hyped, really solid Suns team. Like I said, that did have the defense or depth to keep up Minnesota, and Minnesota just kind of outlasted them. That last game was by far the close one. We really just saw Anthony Edwards take over the game. It was too much for the Suns to handle. So at their next match, most likely is going to be against the Nuggets. The Lakers did stave off. They won Game 4 in LA. That game has come back to Denver. Jamal Murray is questionable. That could be a big thing this series. This Lakers team is a team that's looking for a break, and they got it there. Don't think it's going to be enough. I think that Jamal Murray will sit out Game 5, and maybe the Lakers will win that one. But if it gets to a Game 6, a Game 7, I don't think Jamal Murray's missing it. It didn't sound like too serious of injury. He's questionable, so he might even play Game 5. Keep an eye out for all that. So I'm 100% status of like Jamal Murray, and that is going to be huge. But the Denver Nuggets having insane at home. They're 33 at home, and they could have been 31. It's not going to be an easy game. LeBron James is going to have to do some more crazy stuff. Has the ability to do it. But them, I think the Lakers might steal that because of that. It is in Denver, where the Nuggets have been unstoppable. I think it's Wolves out in 5. Maybe it goes to 6 if Jamal Murray plays. We'll have to see. Wolves are most likely going to get come back. Or not that we haven't played, but I think Wolves like next. It's going to be they're going to play against with this and when teams played in the race since down the street. They're coming out have to see and Wolves see. So they have some experience in club life from each other. Very excited potentially after 100%. I don't want to get match game series finishing off the West. It's been back and forth. That series is tied at 2. They were up by 30 points at one point, and the point in the third quarter, and they almost split. Paul George and James was incredible in that fourth quarter. They finished with 33 points. Paul George hit 7 threes in the game. They were both really efficient, 11 of 19 and 12 of 17, respectively. No Kawhi Leonard. They didn't need Kawhi Leonard. Luka and Kyrie doing their thing. They're unstoppable. They're going to do their thing. Luka was only 1 of 9 from 3, which definitely helped there, but he did have a 29, 10, and 10. That series is Game 7. It's back from 1-1. It's heading back to LA for Game 5 in a couple days. We'll see how much much later. It's been very fun. It's been back. But that back for teams. But moving to the East, look at the East. Just looked like a completely different team. You watch the first game of that, you would have walked away thinking, match having a chance, it's over, they're going to get swept. They go home in Game 3, and they win by 40 points. The Cleveland Cavs never really had a shot. In Game 4, it was tight at halftime, it was tight for most of the third quarter, and then their offense stopped working. The Cleveland Cavaliers offense just stopped working. It completely disappeared. They scored, I believe, 10 points in the third quarter, and they weren't much better in the fourth. At one point, it was like a 50-15 for the Magic. That's put away, and if the Cavs offense is going to disappear like that, they're not going to win. They need to happen again. I don't know what happens if it's the Cavs on the road or if it was 180 from what we had been seeing at the beginning of the series. We had never seen something. We hadn't seen anything like that before. At least I haven't in a long time. And yeah, we saw that in college football where they scored point for over 6 minutes. The Cavs did. They just couldn't buy up at a certain point, and it felt like really demoralized down. They weren't able to get out of that funk. Once magically just kept running, kept growing. It never hit a snag. It never hit that stop that the Cavs needed to hit once back in. It was not a that you want to look on and say, hey, let's do it. But your offense just completely disappeared in the second half, and not something that continued to happen. Then we're getting to these 1 series now. The Knicks are up 3-1, and the Bucks 1. Both are surprising. The Knicks move up 3-1. Brunson 47-4 after he puts up 50 in game 3. That's in playoff record for the Knicks for points. 47 Brunson. Somehow I would have thought that Melvin or Patrick Ewing or any of those guys would put up 50 at one point. But regardless, the Knicks just playing more energy and more passion, and it's not on and Embiid is playing hard like the entire fourth quarter. They didn't have a center, the Knicks did. Hardenstein fouled out in the third quarter, and they were still out-rebound them, which was supposed to be the big advantage for them. They have this insane post player, and over game dominated, but outside that, Knicks have been able to hold it off, which is why they're winning this series 3-1. You know, because the roster doesn't really compare to Knicks. Knicks have a really good roster, and they're going to be back next year, assuming that they can keep OG Anunoby. Option. The team is next year East, but could still go, Julian Randle back next year as well, but they're one game away from putting away the 76ers. That's something I was surprised about. And closing out this weekend, the Bucks down both of their stars. Dame and Giannis are both out. The Bucks struggling to hold down Indiana offense, and that's really what it comes down to. Tyrese Halliburton they went to overtime. They were dominating in the beginning. We were watching that live a little bit on the show on Friday, but Halliburton hits an insane game winner, a buzzer beater, but an insane game one to put overtime away. Paper up 3-1, and especially with that game or Giannis, that defense is good enough to stop them. The Bucks are in trouble. Even if they do find a way to win another game, they're not winning series. Pacers get upset, although technically it wasn't the upset, because which it makes sense without Giannis in the way that they were playing down stretch. It's just tough to look at, a Bucks fan who had this potential into season. The Bucks and the Suns were supposed to be these two contenders. They moved off-season game. They got Beal added to their team. It was supposed to push them over the top. Just never happened. And it's fortunate, but it happens sometimes. The Bucks have a year to reload. The Suns are in trouble. I don't think their future is going to be better. Still playing Bradley Beal over $50 million for the next 3 years. Casing Denver is still good, but not enough. And the money worth to continue to make this thing work. But that's what's going on in the NBA. There's a lot of games going on. Like I said, with Game and the finish series, the semi-series to Boston, and New Orleans is looking to avoid sweep in this. We're all the games on hard, but we're to move on to our third series to meet about the LP for the season. So we're going to GSMC Podcast.
Look for your daily fix with the network. Is available. Sure, GSMC Podcast. Your daily sports hours on YouTube. Totally free. NFL, college football, MMA, fantasy, shows up. You do your favorite words. GSMC word is absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports. You can get a new first shows. GSMC College Football Podcast. Tip Shot Football Podcast. Boots and Hills Wins. GSMC now free. GSMC Sports Network. Now available on YouTube. Absolutely. Search GSMC Sports.
Welcome back to our GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. We're just broken down the NBA action series, sitting at across the entirety of these. It's coming up to power ranks, the MLB, right now, and we're going to be more opinions. We'll have our front ones at top. They're new up there. Maybe someone's like, I didn't quite have it there, but still our top 4, and we still have that range. Starting to get more these teams. We're going to break down these first power rings before we review our teams. Go to GSMC.net. Never base metro upon this review is free now. GSMC.net. You can and donation saying and ranking. It's been a bit since last our behind relatively similar. At bottom, you have your little clump. Your clump 4, 5, 6 in the White Sox, who have been historically bad. I have them at number 30. The Chicago White Sox, who currently are on pace to break the modern era record for losses in 120 at New York Mets. If White Sox continue to stretch, they're on pace to lose 120. A dubious distinction, definitely, but something to keep an eye out on if you're just watching for a little storyline. White Sox are the team in baseball. Nothing is going for them. It's just a mess. At 29, a team in a very similar situation, the Marlins. Marlins, who just blew a 7-run lead to the Washington Nationals the other day. And it's fine to blow a 7 lead, but blowing a 7-run lead to the Nationals on a day where Patrick Gordon pitches and you dominate his pitching, just can't get anything done exactly. Nats are able to call back and win that game by 5 runs. It wasn't really even that close at the end. Marlins are at 29 again. Injuries hit them hard. It's not great for them, but injuries hit them hard. At 28, I have the Colorado Rockies. Slightly better than the Marlins. Not very good. I think 8 down to 8 is abysmal. All these teams are really bad. Really, really bad. The White Sox suck because they can't get a pick better than number 10 overall because they're in a market too big, and they had a top 3 pick last year, trying to balance out the small markets in baseball. it sucks for them. All of those teams are really bad. The next tier has 5 teams, and it consists of the Flex at 27, the Angels 6, the Nats 25, the Cardinals 24, the Astros at 23. The Astros have been interesting this season. Because the ALCS last year, a little hurt, and they got away from analytics out there. But they have too talented to have record be on that. That roster is way too talented. You got Alves. You got Jose. Have Calder. You have Justin Verlander. You have a really solid roster. Staff and Jade Bullpen really turn it around. If there's a team in this half that I'd be able to turn it around, it's the Astros. If you look at playoff percentage, they still 47% chance to make the playoffs. Just kind of get. But if there's a team that's it's the Nationals 25, Angels 26, Attic at 27. So now we're getting into next year ups. You're fine, but we still need a little more on. The Giants have been hit with injuries at 22. Hawks is just above them at 21. They started off a little hot, and they've cooled down recently. And then I have the Pirates at 20. They are almost 500. I believe they're still over 500. They're still ahead of Cardinals in their division. But they are definitely sliding, and they need to figure out if they're going to be good or not. Those 3 teams are all kind of grouped together in my brain as just bad, but And then we're going to get in this meh good tier, right? We just finished the meh bad tier. We're getting the meh good tier, right? And this consists of 5 teams. The Twins at 19, Red Sox at 18, Rays at 17, who finished below 500 April for the first time ever. The Mets 16 on a crazy hot streak, but they start off the season really slow, so I want to see if it lasts a little longer before I really start to vote them up. And the Tigers at 15, who have looked really good all season. They had a couple weeks ago, but they're looking more close than they saw at the beginning. Questionable if you want to throw the backs in at her. They're my next team. I'm not going to down on the rest of it. Our next year, which starting we have Blue Jays at 18, the Rangers at 12, and the Reds at 11. Those 4 teams are good. They're all making a push for higher rankings. They all have promising parts if you look at it, but they also have detractions. The rest of the pick still isn't all the way there. The Rangers haven't looked the way they did on offs before. The Blue Jays have just struggled a little bit out of the but I still believe the teams. I think they're all good. And we're hitting our top teams around it off. So last week at 17, they're probably the biggest risers from last week. So it's been extra 2 weeks since the last did this. But risers, the Mariners are fun started together. In that they win some games. The offense is waking up again. The very team. Cubs at 9 are kind of in the same tier with Wilson Brewers, who have an 8 and 7. Brewers have been really good tier. I've been pleasantly surprised. The Brewers higher. There's a lot of teams that division have been pleasant surprise to me. And the Brewers being probably the Guardians as well. The Nationals been really good. When we were doing our preview for the MLB season, I was saying the divisions are going to be weak, but a lot of them start to show up, and it's making for a fun race. Cubs at 9, Royals at 8, Brewers at 7. Phillies at 6. They just went through a stretch from the best pitching performances pitching stretches at team I've seen in a very, very long time. And the Guardians at 5. Their pitching, their bullpen is insane. It's been irretouchable. And Taylor has really stepped in the role. Jose Ramirez, Jim, he hasn't really been Jim this whole season, and the Guardians are killing it. They're entering into conversations to be true contenders. I have them at number 5. I don't quite have them up in that top 3 yet. Still a distinction between the top 4 teams and the rest of that. But that top 10 have started to fall off a little bit. They're still in the tier contenders, but they definitely started to fall off. You see the loss of Garrett Cole start to hurt them a little bit more. And the Yankees will be in a really good spot once the rest of the season rolls along. The Orioles I have at 3. In really just sent Jackson Holiday back down. He's ready to come up yet. There's a lot of reasons why that could be, but he'll be back up later this season, and I have no worries that he'll figure it out. He wasn't quite seeing the zone. The umpires weren't calling the zone the same way, so that definitely hurts the Orioles. And Jackson Holiday, they still have a really young, really talented roster, all the way top to bottom, so it's really not much to worry about. The Orioles weren't really counting on Jackson Holiday to be this MVP candidate this season. They don't need that. They already have 1, 2, maybe 3. That would depend on it. Number 2, I have the Dodgers. Injuries prevent them from being at number 1. They've started to get it. They've been good all season, as Shohei Ohtani has been really good at the plate. Tyler now really good on him. Yoshi Yamamoto has been starting to get into his groove. He's not a good pitcher, and that leaves the Braves number 1. They're my number 1. They really show signs slowing down. The Braves are the best baseball team. Cubs, Phillies, Guardians, Yankees, Orioles, Dodgers, and the Braves. I think those power rankings. I'd like to hear your thoughts. For the show, we're going to talk about Ezekiel Elliott re-signing with the Cowboys. What that Cowboys for the future of the organization for the season, if that leap them over the top. We'll talk about all that and more on GSMC Podcast Network.
For the best ability to pass a mobile enter, the podcast on GSMC lacks free on bridge podcasts, health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, peace, technology, finance, and weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Welcome back to the network. I'm your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuned in, our ML Power at number 1 and White Sox at number 30. If you want to hear the last segment we just did, In segment 2, we broke down the NBA playoffs. We broke down all of the series that are out and the series at the end, and what I expect for the rest of the first round of the NBA playoffs. And in segment 1, we talked about the NFL draft. My wins and my losers. Defense were my losers. I want to hear more about I know what you get anything to today's show. I'll do today's show. All you do is go to GSMC Podcast. They put a message up on the bottom screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world. Just pull this show. We'll push anything that you do. If you like, go with those comments. I've got an eye on all times. Appreciate you guys for tuning in and listening. Appreciate each of you decide to donate. So saying we're gonna finish off our show talking a little more about NFL, talking more football. Ezekiel Elliott signed a 1-year deal to return to the Dallas Cowboys. It will be likely R1, assuming that no Cowboys don't sign anybody else. That Cowboys running back from recently has Pollard. It's something a lot of people talk, something that's reported. Zeke went to Dallas, but he thought he'd be more in a ground. What I said was would be more role in the position and him being lead back. That time he's back. Time was a really short back and into a season. And that off last year he had some recent games, had some really cool runs. We didn't contribute him, but it's not all on him. There were other things that wasn't as Elliott. He played some good football. He wasn't he didn't touch the game. He was really effective in some sides. He runs styles. Down here, running back after 1 year off. It's good for the Cowboys. They need running. Want to go. There are a lot of options in a way. They're kind of trying to figure out what they're going to do. What they're going to do. There's nothing they need to figure out how. And it doesn't seem like it's happening off season. They got another year. Without Cowboys, brought the end. Leader locker room. In choice, see if they're going to make RB1 because he didn't really that kind of ability to be the 20 running back anymore. And I'm sure he's not as efficient of a runner. He's lost some speed. He's still the efficient yard back, and he's a really goal back to have. But as far as being your 3 down, 4 down back, behind one other guy in there, they didn't get him in the draft. There's still some guys floating around. If you can they do that. Just get at least mass catching back. They want. I have that. That was our opponent. They beat the 20 times. They didn't win out 50 times, and that's why I decided to game my party. I don't really his style, his offense, but it might be what they have to do. Is be back. Now have he's not about it, just older and that's not the good to have good when you're back. You never want to have goals and since you fancy a franchise with your guys so long, so small run. Led boys really since some rules, just what I would do, but it was really good to see him return to the games making back that one weekend. I heard some questions in Prescott because I don't think the moves to anything. Prescott will stay away until that they're having a quarterback, because they aren't going to just keep in some random quarterback that they don't believe in. They believe in Dak as a quarterback. With return, you're coming back to the glory days. So maybe something happens. I don't think this is really going to change much now for the Cowboys. It's only a 1-year deal. It's not too expensive. So again, I'll change it. But it is good to see in the Cowboys uniform. Interested to see what role he'll play this season. Because he can't that full part down anymore. So I want to see what the Cowboys do to spell him. Because there's plenty of feature backs left out there for them to go sign, unfreeze for them to go get. But who's going to be running back? Zeke is not going to need again. He's not the number 1 thing. Zeke back to the Cowboys. Don't you think they come about this move? Anything else?